And yeah, Cynthia, you know, you beat me to it, but that's exactly where I'm going. I mean, you know, I did want to at least touch a little bit on this and offer up what I think are some issues with some of the I do like seeing that my book pops up, and I'm sure that's algorithmic, you know, whatever, based on who I am. But I would like to get these ads out of here. Second edition, spring 2023, by the way. Anyway, Buffalo mass shooters alleged manifesto, no doubt attack was white supremacist terrorism. So I know that there's been some attempt to debate that. The U.S. Justice Department is investigating Saturday's mass shooting at a Buffalo supermarket as a hate crime and an act of racially motivated violent extremism. The gunman was identified during his arraignment as Peyton S. Gendron of Conklin, New York. That name that matches the name given a 180-page manifesto that surfaced online shortly after the attack and took credit for the violence in the name of white supremacy. Law enforcement and government officials would not confirm the validity of the document in the immediate hours after the attack, yet the excruciating detail provided leave little doubt of its authenticity. A senior federal law enforcement official told the New York Times they believed Gendron posted the document. There are certain pieces of evidence that we have ascertained in the course of this investigation that indicate some racial animosity, Erie County District Attorney John Flynn said. I'm not going to specifically talk about or elaborate on what exactly they are right now. The document, which News 4 has reviewed, plotted the attack in grotesque detail. The writer plotted his... Sorry. Let me just... Okay. The writer plotted his actions down to the minute, included diagrams of his path through the store, and said he specifically targeted the Tops Market's location on Jefferson Avenue because its zip code has the highest percentage of Black people close enough to where he lives. This was pure evil, Erie County Sheriff John Garcia said, a straight up racially motivated hate crime. And that's the diagram. And I mean, it is, I couldn't help noticing that it's just painfully wild to see that at first blush, it looks like anything you would see in any kindergarten, grade school setting. Not only that there would be the detail, but the different colors used, the door markings, exit markings. I mean, but that it would be something that would be related to something like this is pretty crazy. Alexander Rosenberg, Deputy Regional Director for the Anti-Defamation League, which I don't agree with, puts like the Nation of Islam and some other Black nationalist groups as hate groups. I'm not a big fan of the ADL, and the ADL has a history of, which I've even as a research project have been invited to look into, and just honestly haven't had the time or the focus or whatever. But the ADL has a particular history of spying on Black and world majority led civil rights and human rights groups. So the ADL is often not on the right side of history, but anyway, greatly anti-Semitic, greatly racist against people of color, white supremacist, radicalized in all the ways we can think of, Rosenberg told News 4. 180 pages, I want to repeat, of this. Gendron live streamed the attack on social media platform Twitch and had the N-word written on his rifle. Videos from the scene showed he was charged with first-degree murder after killing 10 people and wounding 3 others. The alleged manifesto admits to planning the attack passively for the past few years and seriously since January. It bemoans a purported white genocide taking place in America and proudly brags of the writer's racist and anti-Semitic views. In a Q&A with himself, the writer says he supports those that wish for a future for white children and the existence of our people. That's what white supremacist terrorism is all about. That's what we all witnessed here today. New York Governor Kathy Hochul, how do you say it? Hochul said it has to end right here. This is our message. We will continue to work at the federal, state, and local levels with our community partners to identify these messages as soon as they arise on social media. That is our best defense right now, as well as the legal system and the prosecution. This is actually a false statement, by the way, just as I'm reading this. The best defense for this is not monitoring social media. The best defense for this is uh, obviously a revolution, but something more akin to specifically a redistribution of resources, educationally, intellectual, as well as material. Revisiting access to weaponry, laws that give grant and access to weaponry, laws that allow for the manufacturing at the levels, etc., and so forth, redirecting a foreign policy to make the production of those weapons less an issue given their high marketability and revenue generation on the international market for those weapons. I mean, there's so many other things that could be done. And this is something I'm going to come back to, but were even the black victims or whoever else was it, because I think a couple of them were white, were any of the victims, did the victims have health care? Or on what level will survivors be saddled with, in addition to the other alterations they're going to have to overcome, a financial burden from hospital bill? I mean, these are the things. This idea that monitoring messages is the best defense is part of a long set of problems. Anyway, and here it is my sincere hope that this individual, this white supremacist who just perpetrated a hate crime on an innocent community, will spend the rest of his days behind bars, and heaven help him in the next world as well. We do have to note, as others have pointed out, as I'm sure some of you are already, that he survived. Shockingly, this gentleman was able to do all of this and survive. I get it. He was shot. He survived because of armor plating. That has been pointed out as well. But armor plating doesn't protect you against chokeholds. Armor plating wouldn't have helped Eric Gardner, for instance. It also doesn't protect you against point blank or closer or close range shots to the head that occur even in custody or in near custody, as we've seen in a number of instances, with shootings of armed or unarmed Black and brown men and women. What did that brother get killed with? The ketamine shot or whatever? Like, would armor plating have protected against that? So, you know, what did Sandra Bland get killed from? I don't know if armor plating would have helped her either. But anyway, he survived. One of the victims in the attack was identified as Aaron Salter, a retired Buffalo police officer who was working as security guard at Tops. Officials said Salter attempted to stop the attack and shot Gendron in the chest, but he was unharmed because he was wearing tactical body armor. The alleged manifesto carries on for numerous pages about the type of gear that was chosen specifically for the attack, from his helmet and weapon all the way down to his underwear. It plots his breakfast, arrival time, live stream, and getaway. The writer says he will plead guilty if in trial if he survives the rampage. Gendron said only 4 words in court Saturday before being taken away. I understand my charges. So that's obviously, I guess, some of the latest, as far as I'm aware, details. There was something else that I wanted to make note of here briefly about this as well, and then I will be checking the chat, you know, momentarily. But I just want to, in this, more or less, some of this more the same. In terms of, let's see, where are the notes popping up on here? Let's see. Right. Okay. So as it's been discussed in some news outlets, replacement theory has been brought up here. We heard in the manifesto, or when it was referenced, that according to the manifesto, the author, the shooter Gendron, says, he's concerned about the survival of the white race. Replacement theory, the conspiracy cited in Gendron's apparent manifesto, has roots that date back to the early 20th century. But today, people are more likely to know it from French writer René Camus' 2011 essay, the title of which translates to The Great Replacement, according to the anti-hate group ADL. In it, this is again one of my problems with these. One of the lesser issues that result from this is the reinscription of false and poor authority, like the ADL, on these kinds of issues. It was the same problem, like when the Freddie Gray uprisings were occurring. So much of the institutional response was to reinforce and reinscribe the authority and legitimacy of people like Pastor Jamal Bryant, who, if people are paying attention to, is just continuing so many frauds and scams. People like Al Sharpton, who is, in many ways himself just himself a fraud and a scam, but politically, more to my point, is reinscribed as legitimate authority, et cetera, and so forth. Of course, remember all the calls to appropriate parenting and policing, etc. I mean, just all of that. And here we get the ADL reinscribed. In it, Camus argues that immigrants from the Middle East and Africa are replacing native white Europeans, which he says will lead to the extinction of the white race. The ADL said white supremacists have adopted and promoted the Great Replacement theory, according to the ADL, which, again, the ADL, said a statement Saturday that the document's language closely echoes the themes of previous rants posted by white supremacist shooters and refers repeatedly to the virulently racist and anti-Semitic Great Replacement conspiracy theory. The writer claims he was radicalized on extremist 4chan forum. So I want to again encourage people to, if you haven't already, to maybe even go back, and we should all revisit now. And he'll be back again eventually. But the conversations with Barrett Brown, who was very familiar with these 4chan spaces, and the rabid right-wing wing of the internet and its connections all the way up to Peter Thiel, the Bitcoin cryptocurrency promoting surveillance, white supremacist lunatic. And it is getting mentioned, including in the clip I'm going to play in just a minute, but I think not with enough attention and focus, and often too much contextualized within more of the mainstream discussion and analysis of these issues. That is, that there is this undercurrent of a right wing. So as we've been told for decades now, that the internet was going to be the platform leveling, playing field leveling, new technology. We see the exact opposite is the case. For every one of these great BPM broadcasts that you can get, there are many more popular right-wing, and I mean rabidly right-wing channels, shows, posters, commenters, et cetera, and so forth, who have an ecosystem that many of us aren't familiar with and don't spend time in, but that are encouraging. Even as I was telling my children the other day, when those anti-abortion activists were outside of our schools, that as bad as these individuals are, they are the surface. They are the observable mountainous regions that are the result of the plate tectonic shifts underneath the surface. So 4chan is definitely one of those spaces. The document also says Buffalo was targeted because it's the city with the most Black residents that's nearest the author's residence, and repeatedly references the gunman who killed 51 people and injured dozens of others in the 2019 shooting at a mosque in Christchurch, New Zealand. The tenets of the theory have been referenced by other mass shooting suspects, including the 2018 fatal shooting of 11 people at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the shooting that killed 1 and wounded 3 others at Poway, California Synagogue in 2019, and the gunman accused of killing 23 people and wounding numerous others at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas in 2019. Man, we got birds, we got dogs, we got everybody's out in my neighborhood today. All right, one more piece for us specifically, and then I'll wrap up what I have to say on this, and then look to your comments in the chat. But this kind of exemplifies, you know, our dear brother here exemplifies a lot of what I think is the problem with mainstream media coverage, and particularly that which targets Black folks. So I just want to play this little clip here from MSNBC the other day.
I think that this is something, sadly, that amongst our communities we often talk about. Is something that we don't say out loud, but behind closed curtains and within our dining room tables, we talk about the fear of the rise of white supremacy and targeting communities of color, African American, Latino, Asian. And what do you say now? Because oftentimes, Roland, people say, well, it wasn't really a hate crime, and they try to make it less than the blow than it actually was. This man had in his hands a gun that said, here are your reparations. What do you say? What do you say to folks that try to say that we're over qualifying the rise in hate in the United States?
This is not something that I have been quiet about. When I was on CNN in 2009, you remember John Avlon and I were off air ready to go on, and I said to John, we're living in the age of white minority resistance. And it was all after the election of President Barack Obama. And I've been getting on this from the rooftops for the last 13 years, and that's why I've been working on this book, White Fear, for the last 3 years. But we have to understand is that what you have in this country, you have.
My bad. Go ahead, rolling with your book promotion. Gotta do it. Gotta do it. Gotta work that in. Gotta work that in. My
people bad. Who are angry and afraid that America is changing, is becoming more and more multicultural. And it's been there. You've got politicians, you've got Republicans talking about this whole replacement theory. You've got conservative radio, conservative bloggers, Fox News, literally making millions and billions off of this. They are purposely pushing the buttons of white rage. And so we have to understand
about that.
The FBI director has talked about the greatest threat is domestic terrorism. It is white domestic terrorism. It's not some Muslim shooting up someplace. It is white people in this country that are angry and upset because that they have known that.
But remember, it was just just a couple weeks ago. And again, definitely go back and look at our interview with Daruba around the Black Identity Extremist joint. But what was it, a week or so ago when I brought up that Lee Fang tweet? Was it on here? The remix? What are these shows? That's why you got to watch everything and have notifications on and like and subscribe and all that stuff. But it was Lee Fang at The Intercept that was saying, see, I told you, it's the Black Identity Extremists that are and then Glenn Greenwald was retweeting that and supporting that analysis. See, we told you, we knew it was uncomfortable for you to hear, is the Black Identity Extremists are a threat to No. Anyway.
Is changing, and we need to understand this will not be the last time. And
he is right about that too.
This mass killing is on the far end of the spectrum, but how do you deal with individuals in political power who are literally saying the exact same thing that he said in his manifesto?
See, here's where we go.
And they are the ones who could be in charge after the midterm election. We cannot overlook this.
So, Clint, let's talk about that, because your expertise oftentimes is very much what happens in the closed web, how that people.
So I'm just going to stop it there. I think we got enough, but of what I wanted to. The point really is that the framing with, again, sprinklings of accuracy in terms of the right-wing media undercurrent, in terms of some of the support from elite politicians. In terms of not really his framing of the history. I think I saw some of you already in the comments got this part already, that this white supremacy isn't new, and or hasn't just been growing since Obama. But even with those sprinklings, the framing quickly becomes it's the right wing, it's the Republicans, It's something has to be done at the midterm election to stop them, which of course means voting for Democrats, which of course, and I don't know this specifically with Roland, but or even MSNBC specifically, but where we do know historically a lot of money starts getting funneled, starts getting put out there to promote the Democratic Party, and ultimately, I think, to limit the range of responses that righteously frustrated or angry people are looking to go to. So he frames this as an issue of blaming Republicans before the midterm, which allows Democrats to be credited for what they have not ever done, which is to be in actual opposition to these Republicans by offering actual policy differences on redistribution, on war, on, as I was saying earlier, whether on healthcare, that if you really want to reduce the likelihood of this kind of violence and of white supremacy in general, if we're not having, obviously, the full-blown revolutionary change that needs to occur, that's the direction people have to start going in. You have to change the material conditions of everybody. So as a starting point, and again, including by redistributing intellectual resources, being more combative, not only in resisting these attacks on these so-called attacks on critical race theory, but on assuring better access not only to quality in terms of content education, but quality in terms of the arrangement of education, that is class sizes, teacher salaries, again, the curricula that's being used, the healthcare provided to the students. Again, it was only 1 year that I taught at a public charter school in DC, a high school that was shut down because the Black administration ran off with the money. But one of the biggest problems that was obvious that was brought to my attention in ways that never before was the nutritional condition, the nutrition and the violence that was heaped upon students just on their way to school. So McDonald's was considered a high-end quality meal, and if they could avoid various forms of violence, sexual assault, gang-related, etc., just to get to the classroom, that was seen as a victory. If you can ameliorate that, you will end up with better conditions. In terms of the white community, whatever versions of that are impacting them need to be addressed as well, whether it's the content of the education, the classroom sizes, et cetera, and so forth. But what is really at play here is in the context of Democrat and Republican, of course, is this traditional struggle between white liberals or I guess it's just the real white community. That white liberals are not and have not ever been collectively the resistance force to their own reactionary tendencies. White leftists are not supported by the white community, which is why so many end up working with Black and brown communities. And the confrontation that they would need to have with their fellow whites is not something that they're excited about or often truly interested in. So that's why they drift over to our end of the spectrum, so to speak. But that's really what's at play here. So when Roland goes on there and MSNBC, of course, and everyone else wants to frame this as Republicans are the problem, so vote for Democrats as if they would be a solution, they're not a solution. He said it himself, the election of a Black president, even with the first 2 years of having a Black Democratic president with Democratic majorities in the House and the Senate, all that did was increase the vitriol and the violence from the white world. That's even Roland's analysis. So if that is actually your analysis, then you cannot conclude that voting for Democrats is a solution, especially if those Democrats, once elected, don't enact anything that might lead to some sort of progress on these issues by improving the material conditions of these communities. If all you do when you're in office is expand war, expand inequality, bail out Wall Street, expand AFRICOM, fund more police, et cetera, and so forth, even white supporters that had previously supported you, all that they're going to do is do what do we see? They go and support not even your white follow-up, but they go over to Trump. It's predictable, and we're going to see it again. So this is why a mass shooting, as horrific as this is already being reframed as a way to get Black people to support the Democratic Party in the midterms. That's abuse on top of abuse. It's the pitfalls of liberalism all over again. All right. I guess that would be it for let's see, timestamps on Barrett's interviews. You mean going through them and by topic timestamping them? I'm not likely to do that, unfortunately. I'm sorry. We would need some support for that. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if that's possible. Links to those interviews, yes. Yeah, come on, hit the like button. Hit the like button. Yeah, exactly, Coco. More like it's the foundation of hate, you know. Appreciate that. Shout out to you too, Ready Revolutionary. Definitely. Thank you for the super sticker. No particular comment, but I appreciate Latif, aka Khaleesi's Dragon. All right, right on. Appreciate you. Yeah, there's no rise in. Yeah, it's just this. It's just here. The hate is just here. Fear the rise of white supremacy. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so I will say I was at soccer practice, my daughter's soccer practice last night, looking at everybody a little differently. Appreciate you too, Big T.O. I was sitting in the car. I'm on edge. I'm not going to front. Even I'm on edge.